Hello, this is Hot Indonesia, where the talk is definitely not cheap. I'm Dalton Tanaraka in Jakarta. Here is this week's HI Hot List. Holy terror. Was the Jakarta attack a one-off or a warning flag? House rules, the new leader says, less recess and overseas junkets. Will that make any difference? And more or less, how many kids are enough? Sitting beside me are two ladies cooler than Japanese shaved ice. Yeni Wahid is director of the Wahid Institute, second daughter of Indonesia's fourth president. And I always want to emphasize this, fashion icon. And Rahayu.
Probably not, but thank you.
Rahayu Sarah Saraswati is a parliament member, former actress, and faithful follower. Follows many good things. Hot topic number one, holy terror. The January 14th attack could have been a lot worse. Gunfire and homemade bombs exploded in the heart of Jakarta, and when it was over, 4 attackers were dead, with 4 civilians also victims of the Tamrin violence. Indonesia's top cop says the assault was a hastily executed backup plan after police disrupted holiday preparations. This was the first incident attributed to the militant group Islamic State based in Syria. Police Chief Badrodin Haiti also said that there is concern that there are more deadly attacks could come as militants, Indonesian militants who are training in Syria, Middle East, come home. Should we be worried? Of course. Should we change our lifestyles? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, I think what we saw yesterday was, the aftermath.
Not yesterday, on the 14th.
Last week.
Yeah.
Last week,
Yesterday is a very Japanese way of saying
yes.
Kamarin. Okay,
Yes.
Kamarin. Okay, I got it. Okay. What happened on January 14th?
It's sorry, I just have to explain. We do that all the time.
Okay.
Yesterday.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, that the aftermath of the bombings showed how Jakartans came together and then, proclaimed that we're not afraid of the terrorist threats because, one of the impact that terrorists wanted to happen in the society is to instill fear and panic but Jakartans simply just
Shrug it off.
Absolutely, and even convince the world that we are not going to bow down to.
Well, not convince the world, but convince the attackers, the
Right.
planned terrorists, because authorities say as many as 500 Indonesians have gone to the Middle East to train with ISIS, and that their return could mean a sustained round of attacks.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few things that, first of all, of course, condolences to the families that were affected by the bombings and the shootings. Talking about no fear, I think that was the first thing that definitely crossed my mind when I was hearing, because some of my friends, a couple of them were actually nearby, and they felt the bombs went off, they heard it, and actually, so I found out about it before it went into the news, and that was just getting out of the area where usually the bombs would go off. So I was actually quite, there was a moment of fear, obviously. There's a moment of panic. I think everybody started panicking, and then there was a lot of hoax going around. But we do have to say, I mean, what happened at that time, looking at the pictures now, Jakartans, we have absolutely no fear because bombs went off and they went.
A lot of it is.
A lot of bombs went off and then they went to where the place was and they're just like watching everything.
You got to mix in a little ignorance because they could have been hurt. If these guys are better trained,
maybe
they'd be dead.
Maybe ignorance in this case equals no fear or something.
Well, some dead because they were there.
Exactly.
The wrong time,
they were
the wrong
hurt
place,
because we do have to say sorry, people. Please don't stand around to see what's going to happen.
If there was a
next.
second wave of attacks, that whole crowd of people would have been hurt.
Yes.
Okay, but
But Dalton, there are 2 points, but the point that you're trying to make before earlier, whether we have to worry but all these numbers of people coming in and, you have to look at it from relative terms as well, relative numbers, because we've got more than 200 millions of Muslims here, yet only 500 actually interested in joining ISIS or even went off to join ISIS.
It's a minority.
Yes, compare it to the numbers in the UK, for example. I got this from David Cameron when he visited here. He said that in the UK there are about 2 million Muslims, and there are about 5,000
sympathizers
who actually, So if you look at that numbers, you look at our numbers.
Keep it in perspective.
Is very small. Yeah. Okay. And the second point is that the government is actually very swift in trying to make sure that when they return, that there will be some measures against them. I mean, they're coming up with terrorism, act of terrorism bills and stuff like
They
that.
got to confiscate passports.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a lot of debates going on as well in the legislation in terms of how will we react to all these people going over there and coming back. Do we actually allow them to return? Because a lot of debate becomes to say, oh, do we, for those who join ISIS over there, do we actually remove their citizenship? It even goes as far as that. There's a lot of debate going on in that sense. But
Where do you stand on that?
still thinking about it.
Okay.
Still
Constitutionally,
considering.
can they take away passports? I mean,
I think that's a dilemma that many
Yeah,
countries are facing
huge.
now. And what do you do? I mean,
What do you do?
I mean, especially in Indonesia. I mean, even if you confiscate passports, there are ways of getting like
Yeah, you
new
can
fake
get one in the
passports.
next
Yeah,
day.
that's the other thing.
Yeah.
But that's one way of deterring people to go abroad. But maybe the best thing is just to send them off and you're not allowing them to come back, rather than sort of allowing
Block
them to
the roads
foster all
back.
these fostering all these angers and then
because
trying
you
to find
can't
some local
confiscate
targets here.
just because they're suspected of doing it. That's
Yeah,
violation of rights,
course.
I think, in many
Yes.
countries.
But as well, another thing that on the same line of what we're thinking of, I definitely want to ensure that the intelligence agency need to do their jobs. And
But in this case, we've got to give
Well,
credit.
you know
I think
what?
police
No, that's
police
true.
did a good
Yeah.
job. I think the intelligence guys, they took preventive action with raids prior to Christmas and New Year's.
Yes.
They arrested the suspected terrorist group. So
But
and
do we-
their,
you know,
their response
You
to
know
the
what
time of
happened
attack was
that day?
good.
I mean, I asked them. I asked some of the police officers that were present. So what happened? And I said, well, we're focusing on the president's visit to Cirebon, and then there are hundreds of ex-convicts that we have to follow. And
because
so,
Sensitivable and Central
and
Java
they've got
is
so many. Yeah, they've got so
home of-
little resources as well.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
on their
I think
hands.
they
So
did a
it's-
pretty good job because the impact wasn't as crazy as
the
it
response
could
was
have
good, and they did show force. So
Yeah.
that
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
what do we do now? I think we keep up the surveillance, which they're doing. You report as citizens. We can report suspicious acts. If you see a
Oh,
guy walking with a
absolutely.
backpack
Absolutely.
and a gun, I mean, don't just sit there and report it and then trust that police are doing their best to protect us, like they did
Yeah.
on January
Yeah.
14th.
And also keep track on illegal gun trade.
That's hard for the
because-
average person, but
No. As in specifically, the intelligence agency.
yeah, that's
the
very important.
border surveillance as well, because many guns are coming in
Yes.
from outside. of
Luckily, we don't
Indonesia
have the
as well.
gun
We're-
problem that
Exactly.
the U.S. does. Okay.
Yes.
Hot Indo will continue shortly. Will more in session time mean more results from Parliament? You are watching Hot Indonesia with Yenny, Sarah, and me. Here's hot topic number 2, House rules. The newly elected parliament speaker went to work immediately to boost his body's image. He got all 10 political factions to agree to cut down recess periods from a month at a time to 2 weeks. Ade Komarudin also got agreement to abolish overseas trips, junkets by House special committees. This was all to boost productivity since over the last year, only 3 laws were passed, we're told. Only 3.
4 apparently.
Oh, that's 25% difference.
Wow.
Okay, out of 12 months in a year,
Thought it would make a difference,
you guys had 5 months of recess, a month at a time, right? So you're only working 7 months out of the year. That's when, of course, members are supposed to go back to their constituencies
Correct.
and deal with their people. The new leader will now get them for a little more than 10 months. So, let's cut it in half. Sarah, will this help?
Well, number one, when I found out how much recess time we had, I was actually quite upset because we do have so much work to do in terms of legislation, and then we have to, look at how the government's doing their programs and basically using the budget. And of course, we have to use about 2 out of the 5 main in-session times for talks of budget. So in that sense, if you look at it, 2 is already taken out for just completely budget talks, and there's only 3 left for legislation talk. And then it's a long process. Like for one session needs to be completely on. If it's a legislation or a bill that's being promoted or passed on by the Parliament, then we have to discuss it in Parliament first before passing it on to the government, and then the government needs to come back
So
to
you're
us.
saying you could use
and-
even less recess?
Well, you know what? No.
Instead of taking away half of it, take
but
away-
on the other side. On the other side, though, we cannot completely forget about our constituents.
Of course.
You know, I mean, I did ask, why did we have so much, recess time? Because apparently in the past, the problem was that the constituents, and this is true, when I was campaigning, the biggest concern or complaint, I would say, that the people came to me about was that
Where's
they
my
felt,
representative?
Where's my representative?
They're overseas.
Yeah.
Yes.
On those junkets.
On the
But,
junkets,
but
absolutely.
Sarah,
Yes.
But that's the thing, though. If now I know about the junkets, right? For example, per commission, maybe there's about 2 working groups,
Okay, wait, let's
you can
focus
only go
on the recess
once,
time first, then we
but
go
you
on the-
can only go once a year, and so it's not really that often that
No,
people
but
can go.
they
But the impact on the trips is that you cannot.
But
you
he
know,
wants to
the-
talk about the recess.
no, there's so many bills not being passed on because they couldn't
Get a quorum.
they couldn't get
Yeah,
a quorum
yeah.
because everyone was just away. All this working
Well, not
group,
in
this
my
particular
commission.
working group was
Okay,
away
let's
somewhere.
get to the
No,
junk.
not in
but
my commission,
yeah,
that's
a
not true.
critic might argue that it's not the amount of time spent; it's the quality of time
Correct.
spent.
Correct.
Right? So
Absolutely.
you can
Yes.
you can make them spend 12 months, but they still might only get past
See,
5 bills.
The way, I'm sorry, I have to explain the details, so people can understand. The way it works is that even if we have recess that's like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, however much time, we only have enough budget to actually be there for about 9 days during recess. So you can cut it down to make just those 9 days.
Then you got to put in free time.
But so what?
What's wrong
however,
with that?
whenever, etc. There's a debate. There's a whole debate, and my point is only that yes, I agree with you that it is about the quality of time, not the quantity of time.
It's also about discipline. You know, many members of parliament they simply don't come to the session.
Oh,
we've talked about that. We've talked
they
about
They
came
don't
in
come
and
to
then,
the
you know,
sessions. They don't even go for the recess.
And they don't go to their home districts even,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
What are they doing?
They're just
Overseas.
sitting by-
Overseas. No, Jenny, your husband was a member of parliament.
Yes.
And you had him home for 5 months. No, not home, but I mean, he was out. Did you guys talk about that? Did he express concern, or did you express concern to him that he's off too much, or what?
That is, he never took any of the foreign junkets.
Okay,
you know,
well,
it's
I
just,
mean,
you
like
know,
recesses.
Because
never
in
recess.
our
well, recess,
her
well, the
husband is
recess
actually in
Garindra Party,
Garindra
yes.
Party, and
What?
we weren't allowed to go
Yeah.
overseas.
Yes, and regardless of whether there's recess or not recess, we always go to the constituent
Constituency,
areas
yeah.
anyway because of the,
Okay,
there's so many issues that deal with.
If the member of parliament is actually from, that's where they're from, the constituency, they would go home anyway. That's home for them. So they would go home every single weekend. But that's the question: if that's their home, why do the constituents still feel like they're not being?
Yeah, they want to stay in
seen or heard?
Jakarta.
No, but seriously,
on-
about the overseas, I have
Yeah.
to say just one point.
It had gotten out of control.
Is that well, I did go once.
Where did you go?
We went to Spain.
Okay.
For
Nice.
the disabilities persons with disabilities act.
Okay.
We wanted to study what they're doing over there because they have a pretty good reputation in
And
the
you,
EU.
so you actually did work, and you.
Oh
of
yes,
course.
we did meetings.
And I trust that you.
etc.
I'm being funny.
No, we
but-
did meetings and everything, but we couldn't do meetings the whole time we were there because the NGOs and all that we wanted to see, they weren't available.
Well, these kind
to
of
meet
trips
with
are not the
us.
problem. The ones that.
I want to say though that I actually agree for there not being any trips. Because seriously, I felt really frustrated because of how some of my colleagues were acting.
Sometimes all these trips, sorry, because it's such a waste of time.
It is
and money
a
as
waste
well,
of
because
time
And
and
they're
money.
sending their friends and their relatives,
No, no, no.
non-industry.
And then
the
when
one.
in a recess as well, and recess time in the host countries as well. So you couldn't really meet in the holiday times. They were trips.
But what he's saying is different from the bilateral trips. The bilateral is probably about
these are
once a
special
year.
committees where you're
This is
creating
where-
a junket, you're creating
You're
something for
yes,
yourself.
exactly.
Those should not be done. I mean, we heard the high-profile ones like the film festival thing. Instead of industry people, they sent friends who not even
Yes.
tied to. We talked about that.
Yes.
And of course, overall, the House has had its
to
problems.
be honest with that one, that's not the legislation. That's the executive.
Okay. Oh, really?
Oh yes.
Okay, well, junkets in general, do away with them if you don't have to do them. The House generally has its problems, has to fix its image. Of course, the House Speaker had to step down. He went to Donald Trump's thing, which we're going to talk about.
And by the way,
and
my
Freeport
party
thing,
was
the
already
Freeport.
against the junkets anyway before this
All right,
guy.
well, good step.
But anyway, this is a good move.
Let's
by
see if
the
it makes
House
a difference.
Speaker,
Yes.
Because the
Finally agreeing with my party.
All right, well, all 10 factions said yes. Okay, more hot Indo is ahead. How many kids are enough? You are watching Hot Indonesia from Jakarta. Hot topic number 3, more or less. It used to be big families were the norm. 3 children or more were common in the 1950s and 60s. But as the cost of living rose and population growth became a concern, the number of children per family shrank. China even mandated, as we all know, a one-child policy.
But now
One
they're
child
changing it
only,
now.
that will end this year. How many is enough? Yenny, you would have had big problems if you lived in China with your 3 children.
Yes.
What was your family planning goal? Did it just happen, or did you say, I want...
We didn't plan.
I love how
We just let a chance to
Let it happen.
Let it
let
go.
it just
Let
let
it
it roll.
Glass
you
of
know?
wine.
Yes.
Late-
But 3 is a good number
Yeah.
for me.
I mean,
3
that's more
kids.
than the norm. Usually
Yes.
today it's 2. So
Well, because
No, it's
the
still
government had a
Yeah.
family planning program before that
Yeah.
advocates for
It's
just
2
2 kids
kids.
per
2.
family.
Yeah, so you
and it
broke
was
your
really
own.
successful, and President Suharto actually got an award from I think the UN's what's the UN's bodies concerned with this population control.
Oh yeah.
now, how many? You're in a family of how many? How many brothers and
4
sisters?
4 girls altogether.
4 girls, right? So that's more than you have right
you
now.
have 3 girls.
3 girls, but my husband is
Ooh, a lot of
5
girls.
boys in his family.
Okay,
so you
so-
have a chance of having a boy if you go get another one.
Yeah, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's
She's
okay.
done.
I'm very happy with my girls.
But I'm saying
yes.
we all came
I'm
from
happy.
families bigger than families we likely will have. Because Sarah,
my
you know,
mom is 1 out of 17.
there you go, 17.
My grandma is only 1 kid, 1 child. She was the only child, but then she had 18.
What the?
My mom is
she-
the oldest.
she beat you by 1.
She would have.
Okay.
She would have had.
No, actually,
She had
it
2
would have been
miscarriages.
18. 1 was a miscarriage.
Oh no, Sarah, you are a new mother.
Wow.
We all know you are a new
Oh,
mother.
God.
Only 1 or ready
I
for more?
don't know how people. You know what? I concluded women are given the gift of amnesia by God.
You forget the pain. You
I'm
forget
telling
the
you,
pain.
it's seriously that day. If people were asking, would have asked like, "Oh, when are you gonna have next?" I would be like, "Hey."
So what are you saying? You're
kidding
not
me.
gonna? Are you're gonna have more?
I already had my amnesia, so I'm
You're ready.
Looking forward to the next one.
Show
But-
back.
Oh, yes.
but I'm waiting
It's joyful.
until my boy is about 1 year old, and then we'll see.
Okay, I have 1 child, as you know, and want another, but it's an economic
He wants
decision for
another.
many.
You hear that, people?
Yes, yes, girls.
It's
you
an
know,
economic
of a
decision for
breeding
many.
age.
For many people, I'm ignoring you guys. For others, it's a faith-based choice, right? You're dictated by your religion, whether you can or cannot family plan. And
No, you can always family plan because you can do
Catholics?
you can do the timings.
There are many
I mean,
Muslims who opt not to have
okay. What I
kids
meant
as
was
well
birth
now.
control, active
Yeah,
birth control.
okay,
That's a
okay.
little
You're
different.
talking about like what to take something for it
Oh,
or do
okay.
the.
In
But my-
Islam, actually, there is it is allowed to have a birth control as a way of not preventing birth, but what do you call it? Managing birth.
Managing your family.
Managing family.
Now, I
yeah.
want
I
to
didn't
talk
know that.
about a
Okay.
few things that are quite important here because when I went to the G20 summit in Germany,
Yeah.
it was talking about it's hashtag She Matters. That was the headline, and they were basically looking at population around the world. Asia has actually stopped growing.
Okay.
They need to focus now on Africa. Africa, in a few years' time, will be the biggest
Exploding, huh?
population in the world.
But look, China's
So-
relaxing its one child
Yes,
child
and
policy.
With
Indonesia-
less and less resources to support that growing number of
Exactly.
populations as well.
So I think the focus is not necessarily on. I think we need to look at why. Why were we cutting it down? It was mainly because of resources. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about how many you should have, that's everybody's your own right. However, what I'm trying to say to my constituents, for example, if you cannot afford to have more than 2,
Don't.
then don't.
Yeah.
But it's more than just whether a family can afford to have more than 2 or 3. But it's also whether a society can afford to have, whether a society has enough resources like clean water
Right.
for every citizen.
She's going in the macro level, yes.
Yeah. So, you know, I think
Very
that
basic stuff.
Yeah,
Well, then,
this is
so
not
I
just.
I think government should not be in the business of regulating family side, but it's got to do a better
But
job
if
of
it has-
educating,
well, if it
educating
has,
parents.
If it has impact
Yeah.
on the way the dynamics of the society, then the
Correct.
government actually has
Well,
an obligation
If,
to
if,
think
if
about
they
the
do their
solutions.
job, if government does its job, it helps you family plan better because of the very issues, the basics.
Well, the
yeah.
government is obligated to provide welfare for the people.
Yes, and that's costing a lot of money,
And that's a
which
limited
I'm
resource.
dealing with in my commission.
Okay, so no more children, more. Okay,
No,
got it.
no. I'm saying have
What?
as
You're-
many
you're-
as
you're-
you can afford,
No, I'm
and
saying
that
you.
the society.
You said you want more, personally.
As in personal.
Yes.
As in he wants to say he wants
Yes,
more.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, got it?
Got it.
All right,
He wants
feedback
more.
time now. And let's hear about what we're talking about next time. But for now, we like hearing from you out there, especially viewers out there in Amsterdam. Oren posted this on our Facebook page. I'm from Israel and keen to learn about Indonesia. Your channel is really helpful in that quest. Good to hear that, Oren, and you can also get to learn about some of the country's most interesting people, like the ladies I have here. If you have any feedback on what you've heard or would like to suggest a topic for us to tackle, please email us at hotindo@theindonesiachannel.com or comment through our Indonesia channel Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages. Final words, Ms. Yenny.
We're faced with violent extremism in the past few weeks, but we shouldn't forget that apart from the violent extremism, there's also the so-called non-violent extremism, in which people just spewing out hatreds and messages of hates and negativity and all that. And I think the society needs to do something about it, because if you allow the kind of things to go on, it's actually a breeding ground for terrorists to recruit the caterers. Thank you.
Verbal terrorism, right? Okay. Final word, Sarah.
Whether you want to call it gun control, gun safety, whatever it is, apparently gun control people are chafing at the idea because it means maybe they can't buy guns. But to be honest, I am so happy that here in Indonesia we do not have the right to buy guns if you're just a normal citizen, because then you won't be able to commit any crime with a gun unless you get the gun through illegal channels, and which means that nobody needs to defend themselves using a gun. And unfortunately we're seeing a lot of that in other countries, and I know because one of my friends, my best friend, she lost her father through gun violence because an 18, 19-year-old kid felt it was okay to carry a gun, shoot at everybody in school. That is not okay, and I feel that the world needs to stand together with this.
All right, yeah, sorry to hear that. My final words, there is growing interest in the U.S. presidential race here as we watch televised debates and count down to November. You know, the number of candidates will be narrowed down as the months pass, but as an expat American, I can assure my Indonesian friends, ladies, about one thing. You will not see a certain reality show businessman as one party's nominee. Trust me, it's only a case of temporary insanity. Are you a
But
Trump?
you know what? No. An American friend of mine said maybe it's a good thing if Trump won the election.
Yeah, for other countries.
Do you know why? Because then maybe the Americans will wake up to that sad reality and do something about it.
that'll be too late.
No, actually, my friends will literally get out of that country.
Things will be the
I'll
same.
renounce my citizenship. Maybe. I might do
That's
that
what I
anyway.
was saying when somebody got into power. But
I might do that anyway. Okay, that is Hot Indonesia for this week. For Sarah and Yenny, I'm Dalton Tanonaka. See you next time.